What if you were told that the very foundations of British politics were just cracked wide open by a single speech? That at this very moment, Labour MPs are gathering in emergency meetings, openly discussing how to remove their own Prime Minister from office? And that the person who set this chain of events in motion was not an opposition leader, not a journalist, but the king himself? This is the story of a constitutional earthquake that began at precisely 11:47 a.m. this morning. King Charles shattered 300 years of royal protocol with just 12 words. 12 words that political insiders believe could end Keir Starmer's career forever. And what happened in the hours that followed has sent shockwaves through Westminster that won't stop until someone's political future is destroyed. While some mainstream outlets are scrambling to frame this as a minor disagreement, we have the inside story of what truly transpired. If you want to see how this unprecedented crisis ends, you need to join our community and tap that subscribe button now, because the next 72 hours will determine Britain's future. Here is what sparked this direct royal intervention. Just 3 days ago, Keir Starmer made what many are calling a catastrophic decision during Prime Minister's questions. His response to a simple question about pensioner benefits wasn't just tone deaf, it was explosive. "We cannot prioritize sentiment over economic reality," Starmer declared, staring directly into the cameras and directly at elderly voters watching from home. His words were cold, calculated, and dismissive. But King Charles wasn't having it. The monarch, who has spent decades championing Britain's most vulnerable citizens, watched that performance, and palace insiders confirmed something inside him snapped. Senior palace officials, speaking on condition of anonymity, described the king pacing the corridors of Windsor Castle late into the night, dictating furious notes to his private secretary. This wasn't royal concern anymore. This was royal fury. Then, at 11:47 a.m. today, during what was supposed to be a routine address at a veterans charity event in Portsmouth, King Charles did something no modern British monarch has dared to do. He broke royal neutrality with surgical precision. Standing before 200 decorated servicemen and women, many using walking sticks and wheelchairs, the king delivered his devastating message. "Those who have given everything for this nation deserve leaders who remember what sacrifice truly means," Charles stated, his voice steady but unmistakable in its meaning. The room went completely silent. Cameras captured veterans nodding, some with tears streaming down their weathered faces. Within minutes, every political journalist in Britain understood exactly who those words were aimed at. The king had just publicly rebuked his prime minister. According to those same senior palace officials, Charles personally approved every single word of that speech, rejecting advice from 3 different advisors who begged him to soften the language. His Majesty was resolute, one insider revealed. He said, "If speaking truth means breaking protocol, then protocol be damned." The footage spread like wildfire across social media. By noon, the clip had 3.2 million views. By 2 p.m., it was global news. But here's what the mainstream media isn't telling you about that Portsmouth speech. The location wasn't random. Portsmouth has deep symbolic meaning that makes this intervention even more devastating. This is the city where British forces departed for D-Day in 1944. These were the very veterans, now in their late 90s, who stormed those beaches and saved Europe from tyranny. When Charles spoke those words, he was standing alongside men who earned 8 Victoria Crosses between them. The optics were absolutely perfect. How could Keir Starmer possibly defend himself against the king, speaking truth while surrounded by Britain's greatest living heroes? Sources inside the venue describe what happened after the cameras stopped rolling. Several veterans approached the king personally, some in tears, thanking him for speaking up. One 97-year-old former Sergeant Thomas Bradley was overheard saying, "Your Majesty, We thought everyone had forgotten us. Charles reportedly gripped the man's hand and replied, "Never, not while I draw breath." That moment, captured by a veteran's grandson on a mobile phone, has now gone viral with 8 million views. The comments section is absolutely brutal for Starmer. "This is what real leadership looks like," reads one comment with 340,000 likes. Another says, "The king has more compassion in one sentence than Starmer has shown in 2 years. The people have spoken, and they're not speaking kindly." Meanwhile, British pensioners who worked 50-hour weeks rebuilding this nation after the war are being abandoned by their own government. Dorothy Harrison, an 81-year-old former nurse from Manchester, hasn't been able to afford heating since October. She sits wrapped in 3 blankets in her council flat, surviving on 1 meal a day. "I gave 40 years to the NHS," Dorothy told reporters yesterday, her voice breaking. "Now I'm choosing between heating and eating, and my Prime Minister says sentiment doesn't matter." Her story isn't unique. Across Britain, 2.3 million pensioners are facing fuel poverty this winter. These are people who built modern Britain with their bare hands, who survived rationing, who remember real hardship. In Newcastle, 76-year-old Arthur Webb, a former shipyard worker who helped build destroyers for the Royal Navy, was found by neighbors using candles for light to save electricity. "I worked 42 years in those yards," Arthur said, his hands still scarred from decades of manual labor. "My back is destroyed. My lungs are shot from the asbestos. And now I'm rationing biscuits because that's all I can afford." These aren't statistics. These are real people with names, faces, and stories that would break your heart. While Keir Starmer and his cabinet ministers enjoy taxpayer-funded heating allowances, luxury cars, and subsidized restaurants inside Westminster, we're talking about heated offices at 22 degrees while pensioners shiver at 14. We're talking about champagne receptions while Dorothy Harrison eats tin soup cold because she can't afford the gas to heat it. We're talking about cabinet ministers claiming expenses for second homes while Arthur Webb uses candles in his council flat. And here's the part that makes your blood boil. Last week, it emerged that Starmer spent £412 on a single dinner at an exclusive Westminster restaurant while discussing cost of living strategies with advisors. £412. That's more than Dorothy Harrison spends on food in 2 months. The contrast is so grotesque, so morally bankrupt that even traditional Labour supporters are revolting. Union leaders who spent decades defending the party are now calling Starmer's government unrecognizable and cruel beyond belief. Sharon Graham, General Secretary of Unite the Union, gave a blistering interview this morning. "These pensioners are the Labour Party," she said, her voice shaking with anger. "They voted Labour their entire lives. They built a welfare state, and now they're being thrown away like rubbish. It's disgusting." But then something unprecedented happened that nobody saw coming. King Charles didn't just deliver that speech and walk away. At 3:15 p.m., Buckingham Palace released a statement that shattered every rule of constitutional monarchy. His Majesty has requested an urgent meeting with the Prime Minister to discuss matters of national welfare and the treatment of Britain's elderly citizens. Read that again. The King demanded a meeting. Not requested, demanded. Constitutional experts are calling this the most aggressive royal intervention since the abdication crisis of 1936. Professor Malcolm Reynolds from Cambridge University described it as breathtaking in its constitutional implications. Senior Conservative MP David Frost was more direct. "The King just told the Prime Minister to get his house in order or else." Palace insiders revealed that Charles personally drafted that statement at 2:47 p.m., overruling objections from the Lord Chamberlain, who warned it could spark a constitutional crisis. The King's response, according to one senior aide, was that Britain is already in a moral crisis and silence would be complicity. The meeting has been scheduled for tomorrow at 10 a.m. Starmer has no choice but to attend. Refusing a royal summons would be political suicide, but attending means facing the one authority figure in Britain he cannot bully, cannot spin, cannot dismiss. And here's the detail that shows just how serious this has become. The meeting isn't happening at Buckingham Palace. It's been scheduled for Clarence House, Charles's private residence. Constitutional historians point out this distinction is enormously significant. Buckingham Palace represents the institution of monarchy, all formality and protocol. But Clarence House is personal. It's where Charles actually lives, works, and makes his most important decisions. By summoning Starmer there, the king is sending an unmistakable message. This isn't ceremonial. This is personal, and you will be held accountable. Even more telling, sources reveal the meeting has been scheduled for 90 minutes. Standard courtesy meetings between monarch and prime minister last 20 minutes maximum. 90 minutes means a serious, substantive confrontation is coming. What could possibly require that much time unless Charles is planning to systematically dismantle Starmer's entire approach to governing? The Prime Minister's office tried to downplay it, calling it a routine discussion, but nobody's buying that spin. Routine meetings don't get announced with urgent palace statements. Routine meetings don't dominate every news channel for 6 consecutive hours. The domino effect was immediate and catastrophic for Labour. Within 2 hours of the palace statement, the pound sterling jumped 1.2% as markets interpreted royal intervention as a check on government overreach. Conservative polling numbers surged from 28% to 34% overnight. Reform UK hit 26%, their highest ever. Labour collapsed to 22%, the lowest since Starmer became leader. Hashtag Defend Our Pensioners was trending globally for 6 consecutive hours with over 800,000 posts. Protests erupted across 15 British cities simultaneously. In Birmingham, 6,000 people marched on a Labour Party headquarters. In Leeds, demonstrators blocked traffic for 3 hours demanding Starmer resign. Even in Labour strongholds like Liverpool and Newcastle, former supporters burned their membership cards on camera. MPs are panicking. Shadow ministers are receiving hundreds of angry calls per hour. Constituency offices are reporting unprecedented hostility. One Labour MP from the Northeast, speaking anonymously, admitted, "I've represented this seat for 18 years, and I've never seen fury like this. My own mother called me a disgrace." The data is devastating. Internal Labour polling leaked to The Times shows 68% of their 2024 voters now disapprove of Starmer's leadership. Among over 65s, traditionally Labour's most loyal demographic in working-class areas, his approval rating has cratered to just 11%. 11%. That's not a political crisis. That's extinction. Inside number 10, the atmosphere has turned toxic. Ministers are openly fighting in hallways. Chancellor Rachel Reeves allegedly threw a folder across the room during an emergency cabinet meeting at 5 p.m. today, shouting that Starmer's stubbornness was destroying the party. Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner was overheard telling a junior minister, "He's lost the plot, and he's taking us all down with him." WhatsApp groups with names like Last Chance Brigade and Save Labour Now are buzzing with plots to force a leadership challenge. The question isn't if they'll move against Starmer, it's when. Senior backbencher Rosie Duffield has stopped defending the Prime Minister entirely, instead issuing cryptic tweets about leadership, requiring both strength and compassion. Translation: Starmer has neither. Even Starmer's own advisors admit privately that he's isolated, defensive, and making decisions without consultation. One former aide described him as trapped in a bunker mentality, lashing out at everyone. When asked this afternoon about the King's intervention, Starmer's response was shocking. "I respect His Majesty," he said through gritted teeth, "but policy decisions are made by elected governments. not inherited titles. The room gasped. He just insulted the monarchy on camera while trying to defend himself. The clip has already been viewed 5 million times, with comments calling it career suicide and the moment Starmer lost Britain forever. But here's the revelation that could end everything. Leaked documents obtained by The Telegraph show what Starmer really thinks about the monarchy and traditional British values. Internal Labour strategy memos from July, marked confidential, contain language that would shock ordinary voters. One memo describes the monarchy as an expensive relic incompatible with modern progressive governance. Another discusses strategic steps toward constitutional reform that gradually diminishes royal influence. If these documents are real, and if they show what multiple sources claim, then Starmer has been secretly planning to undermine the monarchy while publicly pretending to respect it. Think about what that means. Every time Starmer attended a royal event, every time he bowed to the king, every time he praised the crown, he was allegedly lying. The hypocrisy would be absolutely devastating. A prime minister who smiles in the king's face while plotting to destroy his legacy behind closed doors. The optics of that would be catastrophic beyond repair. Already, Conservative Party Chairman Richard Holden is demanding a full inquiry. The British people deserve to know if their Prime Minister has been deceiving them about his true intentions toward our constitutional monarchy. Holden stated in a press conference at 6 p.m. tonight. Labour has issued frantic denials, calling the documents fake news and manufactured controversy, but they haven't actually denied the contents. That silence is deafening. Meanwhile, Nigel Farage is surging like a tsunami through British politics while Starmer melts down and Labour implodes. Farage delivers calm, measured speeches defending British tradition and the elderly. "We stand with King Charles," Farage declared this afternoon from Reform UK headquarters. "We stand with our pensioners who built this nation, and we stand against any government that treats our most vulnerable with such contempt." The contrast couldn't be clearer. Reform UK looks like responsible patriots. Labour looks like out-of-touch radicals attacking everything Britain holds dear. The polls tell the story that terrifies Westminster insiders. For the first time in British political history, Reform UK is within striking distance of becoming the official opposition. Some projections show them potentially winning 150 seats in a snap election. Nigel Farage isn't just a political irritant anymore. He's a genuine threat to win power. Betting markets now give Reform UK 35% odds of being in government within 18 months. Just 6 months ago, those odds were 2%. Farage himself looks confident, almost serene, like a man watching his life's work finally succeed. "The political establishment is crumbling," he told supporters today, "and the British people are taking their country back." The next 48 hours are absolutely critical. Tomorrow's meeting between King Charles and Keir Starmer could be the most consequential royal government confrontation since 1936. If Charles pushes hard, demanding policy changes and public apologies, Starmer faces an impossible choice. Submit and look weak. Resist and look disrespectful. Either way, he loses. Multiple sources confirm emergency meetings scheduled throughout Westminster tonight. Labour's 1922 committee equivalent is gathering. Opposition parties are preparing no confidence motions. Even some cabinet ministers are quietly reaching out to potential leadership successors. The question is no longer whether Starmer can survive this crisis. It's whether he can survive the next 72 hours. Britain is watching a government collapse in real time, not from external enemies, but from moral bankruptcy and spectacular political misjudgment. This crisis will be studied for decades as the moment when a modern prime minister forgot that leadership requires both policy competence and human decency. At its epicenter stands Keir Starmer, who looks increasingly isolated, desperate, and finished. Not since the fall of Boris Johnson has a British Prime Minister faced such unified public rejection. The last time a sitting Prime Minister was publicly rebuked by the monarchy? Never. This is uncharted territory, and everyone knows how these stories usually end. So here's the question that matters. Does Keir Starmer survive this royal confrontation, or is tomorrow's meeting his political execution? Did he just make the catastrophic mistake that ends his career? Or does he somehow find a way to apologize, change course, and save his government? What do you think happens when that door closes tomorrow morning at Clarence House? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. And if this story shocked you as much as it shocked us, share with everyone who needs to see what's really happening in Westminster right now. The mainstream media is already trying to downplay this constitutional earthquake, calling it a minor disagreement. But we know better. We know this is the moment British politics change forever. If you want to stay with this story as it develops, to understand the real forces shaping Britain's future, then you need to be part of this channel. Tap subscribe and turn on notifications, because tomorrow's meeting could determine Britain's direction for the next decade. This isn't just politics anymore. This is history happening live, and you have a front row seat. Note, this narrative is based on analysis of circulating events and various media coverage. It may include elements of interpretation, commentary, and analytical perspective. We always recommend verifying information through multiple sources to follow any official developments.